over in the world of UFC, they have done a great job of not being very welcoming to the media. And I'm not just talking about myself. Look at who's in attendance at these events. Look at the kind of questions that are being asked at these events. Are there good journalists? Yes. Do they ask good questions at times? Yes. But this ain't 2015-16 when the very best, who are still covering the sport, were going to almost every single pay-per-view, every big show. They have not made it worth everyone's while to go there. From the media days to the types of questions that are being, welcomed at the press conference, to the lack of access to all these things. And so over time, these fight weeks have felt a little bit hollow. Again, I'm not trying to take shots at the people who are there. There are a lot of people there who do a very good job and do the best that they can given the circumstances. But you're lying to yourself if you're saying it was what it once was. It's not. Boxing is more of the Wild West. The same rules don't really apply. And that was on display at the press conference. There was a reporter named Sean Zettel who got up, open mic, in front of everyone, and asked Dana White a couple of questions in an exchange that has now gone viral. And I thought the exchange, and in particular Dana White's response, was very telling. Telling of what he hasn't been challenged with over the last few years, and telling of the way in which he views media, which, by the way, isn't new, but is sort of a stance that we haven't heard from in a while. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the clip.
A couple questions for Dana. Dana, this fight, as you said earlier in the week, is set to be the third highest gate in combat sports history, the second biggest gate you've promoted alongside Mayweather-McGregor. The top five
by the way,
gates
can we
in
pause right there?
combat sports
Great
history
job by
come in
Sean.
boxing, and they
Great job by Sean, by the way. When you want to ask a question like that, great job to sort of preface it with compliments, which he did there. So you sort of drop the guard if you're the person being asked the question, and then you come back with the question that you want to ask. So that was actually a really good job on his part as a question asker / reporter. I know he has been doing this for a while. He doesn't need me to give him props, but I thought that was very notable and interesting. Go ahead.
Come in the last 10 years. So my question to you is, why then do you want to make sweeping changes to the Muhammad Ali Reform Act that is meant to protect fighters, to bring about a business model that currently has your company already paid out $375 million in antitrust lawsuits and has 2 potential pending class action lawsuits on the way as well?
Well, this is obviously a long discussion. If you want to talk to me about that, set up an interview. This isn't about me and my business. It's about these 2 guys.
Can we pause it right
Saturday
there? But keep the shot up. Keep the shot up, please. Turkey looks very bored from this particular topic, which I thought was somewhat interesting. Dana White, as you can see, a little bit stumbled, did not expect that, I think, and is explaining that this isn't the time nor the place. We'll play it out, and then I'll share my 2 cents.
My follow-up, Dana. Earlier this week, the California State Athletic Commission had a hearing about TKO trying to bring those changes to the Ali Act, and it was postponed 3 months.
Listen, I get it. You want to showboat right now. Set up an interview with me if this is really what you want to talk about.
It's America, baby.
If you have questions for these 2, ask them and you can set up an interview with me.
Dana, my follow-up is, if TKO
Pause
can't
right
make
there,
those
but keep
changes
this up.
to the Ali Act.
Keep this up. The look on Dana's face there where he tells him, set up the interview if you want to talk about something like this, and he goes, my follow-up is, and the look on his face like, this motherfucker. Now, I kind of wish he never said it's America, baby, First Amendment, because that feels a little bit like what he's trying to say there, like you're trying to make a moment. But up until this point, all the questions, in my opinion, accurate, fair, and timely. What more can you ask for? This is the fight week for the first show that he is promoting. The changes to the Ali Act is a massive story heading into this new promotion, TKO Boxing, Zuffa Boxing. Where else but there? He has not always asked questions about the people up there or the fight that he is promoting. Go through the history of press conferences, and he will answer questions and very rarely have this stance unless they are critical questions, not positive questions, if you get what I'm saying, to the promotion. But the fact that he views questions like this, like it's showboating or being an asshole, as he'll say here in a second, just goes to show what he thinks of media and what he thinks of proper journalism. That's not showboating. You're asking, if you're going to ask him a question about, I don't know, if John Jones is going to fight on the White House card in this moment, yeah, that doesn't pertain to this. But these are Zuffa boxing questions that are very timely, very fair, and very appropriate, if you ask me. We continue.
Will you still invest in the sport of boxing? Will you compete
Also
in the
another fair
market?
question.
Listen, if you want to be an asshole, let's do it in private and we can do an interview.
Yes or
if
no?
you want to showboat, I get it. If you have questions for these two that are fighting on Saturday, that's a different story.
Fight.
This isn't a discussion to have at a press conference for these two that are going to fight on Saturday, two legends. If you want to set up an interview with me and ask me these questions, let's do it one-on-one.
Sounds
and
good.
You can ask me anything you want.
All right. Well, Terrence and Saul, have a good fight.
Yeah, you have a question for these two?
No.
No? Beat it.
And so there you have it. Being an asshole and showboating is asking good questions, pertinent questions, not how was training camp questions. And I get it. They want to promote the show. The whole press conference wasn't filled with questions like that, but those are really timely, fair questions, in my opinion. And it was very telling by the way in which he responded. It was very telling when you juxtapose questions like that to the questions that he usually receives, at these UFC press conferences. And the fact that he views that as being an asshole and showboating is very telling on what he believes the role of the media is at these events. Now, Sean got to go to the event. I know there were people joking, oh, he's going to be banned and all this stuff. I would like to think that they won't do that. And I don't think you see that much of that stuff anymore. I know that there's an issue going on right now with boxing scene and Riyadh season. And I think that's a whole complex issue unto itself. But I think it would be a really bad look if you took away this independent media member's credentials for asking those questions. I think they were very fair. And it was just classic Dana White to say something like that. All he had to do was, we're making changes. We're lobbying for changes. We'll see how that plays out. Right now, I'm talking about these guys. And the question of, hey, if you can't bring about these changes, are you still going to invest in the sport of boxing? Are you still interested in being a part of boxing? I thought that was a phenomenal question, because what they're trying to do is change the structure so that it's easier for them and more favorable for them to do it their way. Come in, change the structure, change a massive part of the sport that has been intact for about 25 years so that they can do it much more like how they do it in the UFC and WWE. That's what they're trying to do. And so these are fair questions, in my opinion. It wasn't the best press conference for Dana White. And it wasn't the best press conference, if we're being 1,000% honest, for Max Kellerman. I have said that when I got into this, I wanted to be the Max Kellerman of MMA. I have great admiration and respect for Max Kellerman. He had not been in the game for about 2.5 or so years, buyout from ESPN, left First Take, just kind of sailed off into the sunset, was very quiet, wasn't on social media, did nothing. And he has now reemerged with this, Zuffa Boxing Ring Magazine deal. But it was noted by a lot of people in the build-up to this press conference and this fight week that, if I'm being 100% honest, there was a lot of D1 glazing going on. The type of D1 glazing that wasn't necessary because you're Max Kellerman. What you say is gospel to boxing fans. They missed you. You didn't have to go over the top. But for some reason, for whatever reason, I don't understand why, he felt the need to go over the top, not only with his praise at the press conference, but also with his praise on the broadcast. Did it multiple times. We get it. You like them. They're your friends. You respect them. We get it. It's very nice. You don't have to do it time and again. And while doing it, disrespecting the sport that loves you so much. Here's what I'm referring to.
And for the first time in so long, the people bringing you this present love boxing. Let me start with His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh. Let me start with him because if he's never born, none of us are here right now. This was his idea. And then Dana White. Dana White is the greatest combat sports promoter in my lifetime. He built an institution. You know why boxing's not as popular as it used to be anymore, right? UFC is really popular. That's because of Dana White. He built something like the NBA. Stop now, because he's about to do it for boxing again. For boxing now. You want an NBA or an NFL in boxing? Here it comes. Because
Pause
he
for a
knows
second.
how to build
No
an
one's asking
institution.
for an NBA or NFL in boxing. Boxing has just had an incredible 2-year stretch, in large part because of Turkey, who we talked about seconds earlier, saying if he wasn't born, we wouldn't be here. No one's really asking for any of this, right? And so to stand up there at a press conference and tell the boxing fans, the hardcore boxing fans, that this guy is your savior when boxing is in the midst of a pretty damn good stretch, yeah, of course. It's not on ABC in front of 70 million people. I get it. It's not on HBO and Showtime. They're not in the business anymore. But who is arguing that boxing hasn't had a really good stretch over the last 2-3 years? No one. It's been a pretty damn good stretch. Forget comparing it to yesteryear. It's different. The NBA was nothing back then. It's now something. Things change. Things change. Crawford versus Canelo would have been a massive show, a massive gate, just like Fury Usyk was. 1 and 2, Bivol, Beterbiev, all the shows that they've had over the last couple of years, with or without Dana White. So to suggest that we're all here and we're all going to be better off because he's standing here is craziness. They could have promoted this show without him. They had the keys to Canelo and Crawford without him. Crawford's been on their shows. Canelo was a part of that deal back in May. Anyway, speaking of Canelo, he comes in to save the day as the babyface that he is.
And how do you do that?
Hey, Max. Boxing is always bigger and big. Don't say boxing is not big enough. Boxing is big. You know how big is boxing.
Should it get bigger, yes or no? Should it get bigger, Canelo?
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be bigger, but look, boxing is always big and big and bigger and bigger and bigger. We need to talk about that too. Boxing is boxing.
I love Canelo in English, by the way. I love it.
Boxing is boxing.
No lies. No lies.
So how do you do it?
There.
I mean, to have the hubris to be up there and shit on the sport in front of the hardcore fans that are at a press conference on a Thursday, just to, I don't know. I like to, you're already in, man. People already love you. People already miss you. I don't get going over the top like that. And by the way, being that MC guy, I've done it. I don't particularly like it. It's a tough job. And I understand if you're trying to be impartial. The difference is he's actually working for them. I don't when I do it. But the point is, to be that guy, you do have to be a bit of a promoter. I get it. But this was over the top. And so to have Canelo up there and like have to say, yo, man, boxing is big. I've been a part of some of the biggest shows in recent memory. What are you talking about? Don't play to this, crowd. That's not a thing. I found that to be a very strange stance. And if I was a boxing purist, a hardcore fan, I would be insulted by that. That's our guy shitting on our sport. Makes no sense. By the way, at the end of the show, or the press conference, there was this scene where Turkey said that Dana was going to have an announcement, and then the announcement never came. Perhaps this is part of the reason why GC said what he said earlier, which is it seems like, not that there's friction, but that it's not, they're not in tandem all the time. Take a look.
There is big surprise from Dana White. He will announce it now.
Thanks for coming out tonight, everybody. We appreciate it. We're going to face these guys off for photo ops. We'll see you at the weigh-ins.
All right. So there was no surprise. And that obviously fell a little flat. Now, the following day on the Stephen A. Smith show, Dana White said, what he was referring to was that we're going to give $100K to the fight of the night and performance of the night, and they ended up doing that. Now, if I was a UFC fighter who has been in the promotion for a long time, I'd be like, whoa, your first show, you're giving $100K, and we get $50K? On the rare occasion you bump it up when it's like UFC 300, first show, $100K? Golly, what do I have to do? Anyway, also on that show, on the Stephen A. Smith show, Dana White talked about getting into the boxing business, and I thought he made a really, really interesting point. Not one that I agree with, but an interesting one nonetheless. Take a listen.
Nobody has a television deal. DAZN is doing some fights. I will come into 26 with a great television deal for boxing, and I'm gonna come in. A lot of people are gonna talk smack, and everybody's gonna. We'll see how this plays out over the next several years.
I got your back. They ain't gonna do that. They ain't gonna get away with doing that. Me and you've been talking about boxing. I've been trying to get you to do this for years.
Yes, he's been behind it. The interesting thing about that comment is he says no one has a deal. DAZN's doing some fights. Wait a second. Matchroom has an exclusive global deal with DAZN. Queensberry has an exclusive global deal with DAZN. Golden Boy has an exclusive global deal with DAZN. MVP has a deal with DAZN. Misfits has a deal with DAZN. Boxer now has their deal with BBC. We'll see how that plays out. Top Rank doesn't have a deal. He's right about that one. He didn't mention them. But this idea that no one has a deal and they're going to be the first is actually 100% false. And it has been reported and talked about that they might get a deal with Paramount. They're going to get a deal with someone, 100%. Who wouldn't want to be in business with them? Dana White and Nick Khan and Mark Shapiro and TKO and Turkey. Like, it makes all the sense of the world. Will it be with Netflix? Will it be with Paramount Plus? Will it be back on ESPN? That remains to be seen. But he's sitting there talking to someone who maybe just doesn't know these things. I don't know. Or just hoping that we don't know. Boxing does have a deal. Boxing promoters have deals. For the most part, it's with a company called DAZN. And by all accounts, they pay pretty well to these promoters. They've been able, like Eddie Hearn, left Sky Sports to go to them. Some, like Frank Warren, left TNT Sports to go to them. So he might be talking about the state of boxing in America, which surely isn't as on fire as perhaps in the UK. But to say that no one, has a deal is patently false. Now, what did you guys make of Dana's demeanor at this event? Because once we got to the event itself, worth noting, he didn't go to the post-fight press conference, didn't meet with the media afterwards. Terrence did, Canelo did, others involved did as well, but he didn't. And there were a couple of instances where he was shown on camera where people hypothesized that perhaps he wasn't loving it. I don't know. What did you guys make? There he is, just kind of sitting there. That's just a picture. I'll say this. Turkey looked like he had the time of his life. There's Jason Statham there. Mr. Beast, front and center. Notable boxing fan.
Every time they showed Turkey, it was like a revolving door of celebrities that came in. At one point, it was Mark Wahlberg. Who else was up there? Ari Emanuel was in there. It was a revolving door of the biggest names.
Dana there with the belt. What did you think? Is this, I've seen some people talk about this. I don't know who the two gentlemen were in the middle there, but did you feel when you saw him that he wasn't having a good time, or was that just people,
I mean, he didn't look like he was having a great time. He wasn't really smiling or anything like that, but I don't know if that means he actually wasn't enjoying himself or if he was angry about something.
Usually when you see him at these UFC events, he's got the headset on, he's looking down, maybe no headset, but he's always looking at a monitor and he's like right there. It was interesting to see him more in the sort of like luminary section as opposed to, it feels like he's working when he's at a UFC event. You know what I mean?
I was just about to say, it even further highlights the point that this wasn't necessarily his event, right? That this is an event where he is involved, but not necessarily his.
So can we talk about that? Because for the longest time, all of us that have been covering him for the last 10, 15 years, what did we always hear from Dana White regarding boxing telecasts? They're too long. They drag. He always says that there's podcasts in between the fights, right? And that they're a little top heavy. And I agree with you, Rick, because unless he completely changed his stance, all those things were kind of in play on Saturday, right? The event went a little long. There were breaks between the fights. Now, they tried to make up time in the middle, but there was musical acts and stuff. He historically does not like that sort of thing. And let's be honest, it was a little top heavy, right? So that all led me to believe that he wasn't really the puppet master here. This wasn't his vision. It didn't feel like this was the Dana White debut show as a boxing promoter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this did not feel like Dana White presents boxing. It felt more like Dana White is a part of this larger production, but also, you know, the spotlight, quite literally, like, especially if you look at the ringside angles, is right on Turki Al-Sheikh. He's the one in the middle. He's the one who's stirring the drink and running the show. I imagine that if Dana felt super strongly about something, I imagine he could have some voice in the discussion. I think it should be made clear and not, you know, twisted in any way. That I'm not saying Dana White was not involved in this, but this did not feel like Dana White's version of boxing that he had promised in terms of fixing all the things that you outlined.
Yeah, it makes me very curious as to what the Zuffa boxing show is going to look like next year, because it was all the things that you just mentioned. Like, it didn't help that every fight went to decision, all 4 on the main card. None of them had any knockdowns. You know, they were exciting. The Mbili fight was fantastic.
Yeah.
But like all the fights kind of dragged out, and they were all sort of one-sided affairs other than that Mbili fight. And it was like a few rounds in, you knew who was going to win, and then you just kind of had to watch it go to decision. In between the fights, it didn't go that long. We had the timer up in between each, and it was like 11 to 16 minutes between each. But then from the co-main to the main, it was like 47 minutes, 45 minutes from the end of the Callum Walsh fight to the main event starting. I can't imagine that's what a Zuffa boxing presentation is going to look like.
And it was very notable because he has told us for the longest time that he's always felt that these shows drag too long. Like, that wouldn't happen in a UFC show. Now, Canelo and these guys, like, they kind of decide. They're the promoters here. Like, they decide if he doesn't want to walk out, he doesn't walk out. As opposed to in the UFC, they say, like, you're walking out now. And so who knows what exactly happened, but you're 100% right. Now, they had a little bit of bad luck. The last fight on the prelims went long, so when they went to the start of the broadcast, you could see when they went to the desk that the fight was still going. There was still like 3-4 rounds left. And then they went to Anik and Ward and Kellerman. I would imagine they probably wanted to start with those guys, but they couldn't because they were calling the prelims. Now, I do have to say this. I thought the star of the show was John Anik. John Anik coming over as a UFC guy for the past, what has it been now? 12, 13 years, something like that. It's crazy how time flies. I think his first show was UFC 155. I could be wrong about that off the top of my head. But the point is to come over on a stage like this, a lot of pressure. There's a lot of people watching. There's big names involved in the main event. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he seamlessly crossed over. I thought he was tremendous. And other than, the glazing at the very end, this is the best version of Max Kellerman. The Max Kellerman that is sitting there opining and breaking down as the fights are going on and also has the historical knowledge. This is the best version of him. Not the one at the press conference, not the one hosting shows and doing all that stuff. This right here, in my opinion, is the Max that everyone fell in love with on HBO Boxing and prior to his time at HBO Boxing. And I think that Andre Ward is the very best fighter turned analyst in the game. All to say, I thought the booth was fantastic. But Dana has talked about like going to the desk and all this stuff. And they did that. And so that's why I thought that, is he really running the show here? Or is this just the debut and maybe like Zuffa Boxing, the Contender Series show that he talked about with the reporter Amber Dixon is going to be a completely different thing. It's going to roll kind of like Contender Series or a UFC event. It just did not. I was talking to you guys, like, to me, almost as interesting as the fights themselves are how it's going to be presented. And it felt like a Riyadh season show, which I'm not saying is good, bad, whatever. It just didn't feel any different than what we've seen over the last 2 years. When he came in and talked about sweeping changes, I didn't see many of those changes other than personnel, other than the people involved on air. I didn't see those implemented. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.